Welcome to Sister Sessions, a podcast where two sisters on very different journeys explore what it means to live spiritually in today's world. My sister, Jenny Fairbank, is the co-founder and spiritual director of Wisdom Pathways, a yoga and meditation teacher, and a somatic healer devoted to guiding others toward inner peace. And I'm Susie Gustin, a mom of three, producer and owner of Red City Live Entertainment, embracing life's joys while searching for deeper meaning. Together, we have honest, relatable conversations about finding balance, purpose, and connection in everyday life. So, settle in. You are exactly where you need to be. Welcome to Sister Sessions. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Sister Sessions. I am Susie Gustin, and I am here with my co-host and sister, Jenny Fairbank.
Hello.
Today, we are holding space with someone extra special whose presence feels like a homecoming for your heart, your spirit, and your joy. Our guest is Asha Nayaswami. Asha is a guide and spiritual teacher with over 50 years of experience on the spiritual path. She supports others in reconnecting with truth and their divine inner knowing. Through her offerings, whether it's her teaching or writing, Asha reminds us that joy is not something we have to chase. It's something we can remember, reclaim, and live. Asha brings so much wisdom, softness, and depth to everything she does, and today she's here to share that magic with all of us. Asha, welcome to Sister Sessions. We are so honored and excited to have you with us.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I know that you and my sister do have a little history together, and maybe we can start off by telling our listeners how the two of you met.
Do you want me to tell the story? You want Jenny to tell the story? She was in Texas.
You know what, Asha, since you're the guest, would you like to start that off?
Jenny can start. I'd like to hear from Jenny how it sounds.
Oh, Asha, you know I adore you. So Dave and I, my husband and I, found you online in 2014 when we, at the same time, found Master Yogananda in our lives.
Uh-huh.
And we started listening to you every day, all the time. I have to, and I know I wrote you an email probably a few years after I started listening to you the first time, because I was so blown away by how much you were teaching me, and I needed you to know. And I always cry, so I'm going to cry. I can't just you're such a deep soul to my heart, because you've helped through me learning from you. You've helped me with my clients. So you have guided my way of working with clients and from a new perspective. And through that, I feel like I've been able to help people on such a deeper level because of you. And I know I never probably said that in those words to you, but you have really, truly changed my life.
I'm just so gratified. You know, I had the privilege of many years of close association with Swami Kriyananda, Yogananda's direct disciple, and he was extraordinarily generous and attentive, not merely to me, but to literally to thousands of people. And I always felt like it was a gift that was not meant to be hoarded. So my entire everything that I do is just to pass on to others what Swami so generously showered on us. So when I hear you say that something that came through what I recorded is going on to everyone else, I feel like we're all doing exactly what we were born to do. Perfect.
I agree. I completely agree. That passing of the information, the wisdom, right? And then people get to experience it and share it. And now you've become this pillar in society of, really, Asha, a spiritual leader. And it's so beautiful. And I'm so honored to know you, and really truly to feel like you are a friend that I could reach out to. You've always answered my emails, and I know you're a busy lady. And I so much love you. And go ahead.
If nobody, I wouldn't be a busy lady. So it's just the same.
And we met the first time in Texas at the yoga retreat, Texas yoga retreat. It was what, 2021 or 22? One of those years. It wasn't that long ago, but it feels like a lifetime ago almost, because I changed so fast. We all change so fast, things move so fast. And it was such a blessing to meet you in person. And now we've met several times. We've, I want to say hung out, but a little bit.
We've had the opportunity. It's been a nice gift for me too. I'm glad you told that. Even though I know when I met you the first time, if we're already connected online, even if I don't know it, there's some kind of a psychic connection. So when I meet people like you, that you already know me, and I feel like I already know you. It's just already right there. So I'm glad you interrupted me, Susie. I would have said, somewhere in Texas, I saw her. That was my whole story. But when you fill in all the pieces, I remember your
Right,
enthusiasm
right.
and you're very nice.
Well, Asha, for those of us that are just getting to know you, would you mind sharing a little about your early life and what led you to the work that you do today? Would you mind giving us a little bit of the history?
Very happy to do so. I'm American born. I was actually born in El Paso, Texas. I lived there with my father was stationed at Fort Bliss at the end of World War II. And by the time he was released from the army, my older brother was already born. My parents were settled there. I have to say this, I don't mean to be rude, but it took them 15 years to get out of El Paso, Texas. My father was from New York City, so it wasn't exactly a natural place for him to be. And then they moved near Los Angeles when I was about 15. We moved to Los Angeles. All of my early life, up till about the age of 18 or 19, it all happened. None of it made a very deep impression on me. I was really intensely looking for a deeper reality in life, for higher truth. I was very intent without even knowing what I was looking for. My family was well educated and they were good parents. So I didn't struggle. Nothing was a struggle. I was very school smart, which, if you're smart in school, basically all the doors open for you. But it was completely meaningless to me. It was without effort for me to be smart in school. This is past life talent that I just used. But nobody was teaching me anything I wanted to learn. And I went 1 year to university. I got into a really good school. In the first few weeks, I realized that they had lots of knowledge and lots of intelligence and no wisdom, basically. And I was looking for wisdom. Shortly after that, I found books and books about Eastern teaching, about meditation. Self-realization is the goal of life. I was 18, and it was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for this whole time. Nobody ever showed it to me. And I became, as far as I know, I became completely convinced that that was the path I wanted about 2 pages into the first book that I read. And that sort of intellectual research through written material went on for about 3 years. And then, because I was finally ready for it, I met Swami Kriyananda. And I was 22, and he was in his early 40s. It was here right near where I still live, which is south of San Francisco, near San Francisco. It was the late 60s, big explosion of Eastern teaching in the West, and I just took to it like a duck to water. As soon as I saw Swami Kriyananda, literally as soon as I saw him, I just recognized him. You would say a teacher from past lives. But I didn't think of it like that. I recognized that he had the consciousness that I wanted to have. He was joyful, he was free, he was fearless. And those seemed to me the most important qualities, and nobody had ever talked to me about it on any serious level. And I'd never seen it. As soon as I saw it, it was just like, wherever he is, that's where I'm going to be. And basically, that's been the rest of my life. I was with him for 45 years until he passed, from the time I met him. And I've just learned from him everything I could. And he very soon had me passing it along. And that's basically what I've done.
Do you feel his presence?
Oh, yes, of course. He died 10 years ago, left the body 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Even though I had the good fortune to be physically with him a great deal, the first 16 years, I was in very close proximity and basically saw him every day. I lived in the ashram in the hills that he founded, and I lived in the area near where he lived. But we just worked together all the time with many others. It was not a solitary relationship by any means. And then he asked me to come to Palo Alto, to the Silicon Valley in California. We had a small Ananda center. Ananda's the name of the group. And he asked me and a team of others to build that center up, which we did. We've done over the last 30 years with a temple and a school for children and a community for residents, organic farm. And so from that point on, I was not geographically next door to him, but phone, email, and wherever he was in the world, at least several times a year, I would go and spend weeks with him. And he would also come and stay in the house that I lived in. So it was constant. And but but the relationship was really intuitive. Even in his presence, the relationship was intuitive. If you were operating on a superficial level, nothing ever.
Would you, Asha, describe what that is for people who might not know what that means? Like, what does that mean when you say
Intuitive? We think communication is words, but it isn't really. It's the energy that's behind the words. People can use words, and everybody hears it differently, depending on what they pick up, what they're inclined to pick up themselves, whether they're accustomed to picking, whether they're just literal with words, or whether they're accustomed to feeling energy. Also, if you're really close with anyone, or I should say, if you're really in tune with anyone, that if your vibrations match and you wish to be closer to them, how many times have you called someone and they said, I was just thinking about you? Or someone calls you just after something really hard happened and they, quote, just felt to call you, or you literally have mind transfer and you tell somebody something and they already know it because they just sensed it about you. It happens all the time. Not everybody notices it, but it's always going on. So when you're working with someone like Swami Kriyananda, whose consciousness was not in any way limited by physical dimension, nor actually limited by being in or out of a physical body, by life and death. I mean, I'll use the biggest example that everyone knows, which is Christ. Nobody thinks it unusual that a person develops a profound relationship with Jesus now, even though Jesus hasn't been in a body for 2,000 years. And even though Swami Kriyananda was slightly short of that level, it's a directional expansion of consciousness. It's not like we're perfectly ordinary and then we're completely liberated. We grow like plants grow. So you first you're a tiny seed, and as time grows, you can become a huge spreading oak, just by no dramatic steps, but just piece by piece. So Swami Kriyananda was and is an extraordinarily advanced soul, by now fully liberated soul. So his capacity to project his energy was limited only by my capacity to receive it. So over the course of many years, I consciously cultivated the word that we use is attunement, which is to say, to be on the vibration that would mesh with his vibration so I could receive his thoughts and his guidance and his inspiration and his love and his friendship without it always having to be on a piece of paper or over a telephone line. The way I felt it in my life, and the thing is, you see, it's so natural. It sounds so exotic until you actually live it, and then it's just perfectly natural. Where do our thoughts come from anyway? Where does our inspiration come from? We're always receiving. We're not creating anything ourselves. We're just receiving according to what we're in tune with. Musicians receive melodies, mathematicians receive formulas, scientists receive inventions, because that's what we're in tune with and that's what we want. And so when I have wanted, which I wanted from the day I met Swami in 1969, I wanted to live at the same level of consciousness that he lives on. And so I've done all the spiritual practices and all the work I can and continue to do to bring myself into attunement with that so that the emanations of his consciousness will match mine. And then I receive it as just kind of a cheerful confidence. Oh, yeah, that's what we should do. No, that doesn't seem right. Let's try it this way. Oh, I have an idea. But it's in cooperation with rather than just all by myself.
I also love the term cheerful confidence a lot. I do. And it makes me go back to when you were talking about when you first met him many, many years ago. And something that attracted you to his presence was his state of being in joy and calm. And you've been in that realm for so many years. So I have to ask the basic question. Do you ever get angry?
Oh, yeah, just this morning I was in the bank. It didn't work out and I actually heard myself say, damn, think about that. I mean, that's me without my even thinking. I mean, this morning, but I was not proud of it, but I was impressed. I mean,
Okay. So
it,
that was part of what I was going to ask you is if you do feel anger, how do you navigate that emotion then?
it depends on how intensely complex or committed I am to what's upset me. I mean, in the bank, as soon as I heard myself say that, I started to laugh because it was ludicrously unnecessary. But nonetheless, I'm going on a trip tomorrow. It was just frustrating. I couldn't finish my business. And somebody else didn't send me the information, so I didn't have the information. I had all these reasons why I was frustrated. When anger comes up more profoundly when the situation is complex and the karma is has been going on for a long time. And the tentacles of rebellion against reality are much deeper. They're planted much deeper in my spirit. Because anger is just the declaration that things ought to be different than they are. And if there's anything that is completely worthless, absolutely a waste of our time, it is to rebel against reality. It's just like reality always wins. You can just be about as upset as you want, and reality actually doesn't care. And so it just becomes a question of how much do I want to suffer and how much energy do I want to waste? And we're not always reasonable because I think about reincarnation as naturally as I think about going to the bank this morning. It's just so natural to me. So if you think about difficulties that you face in this life, and if you think about the fact that maybe this is the 10th or the 100th incarnation in which I've had to deal with these frustrating, annoying people, or my own imperfections, or just the state of the world that refuses to cooperate with what I think it ought to be, the habit to respond by thinking that I'll just get frustrated and that will accomplish something. I've been practicing it for a long time. So when I'm working with those, I know right away that my frustration or my anger is probably a fair word, although I don't usually express, I don't lose my temper, but I become intensely wishing it were different. But I've worked for decades on some of those because they're just so deep. But if I persevere, I always make progress. So many, many, many of them have dissolved. I just have a few humdingers left, and I'm better at them than I used to be. You just have to be yourself. I use the example spirituality grows like a seed into a tree. And I have apple trees, a couple of apple trees outside where I live. And I'll eat the apple and I'll cut the apple open and there'll be a tiny seed. And first of all, it's how can you not believe in God? You hold that apple seed. I mean, it's teensy and it has the full intelligence and potential to become an apple tree. Unbelievable. But for that little seed to get to an apple tree, it has to go through every single stage. And if it skips a stage, it will not become an apple tree. In fact, it may die.
Mhm.
But and none of those stages can be hurried, not one. Each one of them has to be done absolutely to the full cycle of it. But if the seed persists, and if conditions don't interrupt it to take away its physical form, it will eventually become an apple tree. That's exactly me. That's you. That's everybody on the planet. So when I am in one of those situations where, despite all my philosophy, and I know all the right words, I still am thinking that if I just keep insisting, reality and other people will just shift and be more like what I want them to be, which is a delusion I get into. I no longer panic or fall into helpless guilt or go to war with myself. I just think, well, we're not yet an apple tree. This is how I'm going to get to be what my destiny is I'm going to have to live through this phase where I foolishly lose my temper, get very upset. Lose my patience, my calmness, do things with my mind that are extremely unpleasant. And in the end, I'm just back to square one and we just have to go on. But if I can't skip it, and, if it doesn't serve the apple tree the apple seed to be furious because it's just a sapling, it's just,
Right.
to say it, but that's how we relate to ourselves. I'm so upset, at war with yourself. It just doesn't work. I'm a sapling. This is how saplings behave. Saplings are not as big, powerful as big trees. I have to be careful because I can snap in half, But if I protect myself a little and I'm a little bit kind to myself, get through this. I'll get bigger. I'll be okay.
So what
One of the things that Jenny talks to our listeners about often is the importance of meditation. She talks about it all the time. She gives very good insight into why and how and tips and for beginners and for people that aren't beginners. So I want to ask you, how often do you meditate?
Well, my commitment is every morning and every night. Some days and nights are much longer than others, depending on my schedule. I'm a little more random in the way my life unfolds and my way my temperament runs, but I'm pretty faithful to that. And then oftentimes in the course of whatever I'm doing, it includes meditation, so there'll be more meditation in there. My own mind, which is extremely active, is like a rock rolling downhill, you might say. If meditation just causes it to pause, or you might say it's like a pendulum swinging and it brings it back to neutral. And if you don't bring it back to neutral, it just keeps swinging in a wilder and wilder arc. And people, you lose track of who you are and where you're trying to go and what your life is really about. That's how I felt before I met Swami. My personal image, I said it afterwards, but I think I also said it before. My life was very active. I was very energetic and personable, and I could make a lot of things happen. It was never dull, but I said it was like being the puck in the ice hockey game, which is I was always moving around doing stuff, but I had no idea where the momentum was coming from. And I was always surprised when they started cheering, a little depressed when they started booing, but it was utterly beyond my ken to understand what was happening. And when I got onto the spiritual path, it was like I sort of moved way up into the newsroom, and I could begin to see what the whole strategy was and who was whacking who and why the puck was sliding the way it was sliding. A universe of difference, a galaxy of difference. It's just stunning. That's what I saw in Swami, you see. He was not compelled. He was not being forced by circumstances beyond his understanding. That's why I use the word free. He could choose. That's all. He could choose his consciousness. I had much more self-awareness than the average person, even when I met Swami, just because I was born that way. But his level of understanding and mastery over self made me look like an apple, like a seed, because I was.
Wow.
And back to that, Asha, what you were saying about that, I love that so much, that the seed to the tree,
Yeah,
is that what you're really saying is accept where you are in the process. The word acceptance is so crucial, right? Because that's where we end up suffering so greatly, when we don't accept where we are and then just take the right next step versus wishing and hoping and wondering why we aren't the whole full apple tree yet.
right. That's why I always, what was I going to say? Oh, don't be at war with yourself. Like, I mean, again, the apple tree helps because you can hold that apple seed in your hand and just scream your heart out, telling it to be a sapling already, for heaven's sakes. And the apple seed can't do it. And so we divide ourselves between the one we think ought to be different and the one who's telling us to be different. But it's futile. It's more than futile because whatever our limitations are, they're just simply our limitations. We've spent many incarnations getting to this point, and we will spend more incarnations going beyond it. But and that's just the way it is. We're ignorant in certain ways and wise in others. But if we start being at war with ourselves, our circumstances become secondary to the complex we're building on top. And it's easy for us to change our circumstances, but those complexes have a way of poisoning everything else. And so not only can we not grow, but even as we grow, we remain twisted and confused. So it's much better. One of my favorite mantras is really simple. Well, I'm just not that good.
Yeah. I love that.
I mean, I banked this morning and I heard myself cursing at the teller's desk. And I thought, I thought I was better than that. But guess what?
And isn't that like, I think that's so refreshing for you specifically to say, who's been on this deep path for over 50 years, that you're not perfect.
I couldn't send a wire transfer because I didn't have all the information. I mean, really, there are real problems in the world, and that just simply wasn't one of them.
Right.
Nobody's hurt, nobody's hungry, nobody's.
Right.
It's just a slight inconvenience. I'll just have to go back. I mean, like, really, we don't need to react over this.
So, in terms of joy, do you believe that joy is everyone's natural state?
Well, if it wasn't, we would just suffer and we would just accept suffering. There's a very interesting fact that whenever we're unhappy, if you really introspect, whenever we're unhappy, the reason it's so upsetting to us is that we know that we shouldn't be. Meaning that we know that we have a birthright that's different than suffering. If our birthright was just suffering, we would just suffer and no part of us would seek to escape from it. But when we suffer, every part of us, I mean, down to a snail or a worm, every sentient being seeks to avoid suffering and to move toward that which gives its pleasure. They will seek the food and avoid the electric shock because the food is pleasurable and the shock is unpleasant. And we, much more sophisticated, and we have all these different ways of explaining it, but we're still just basically like the worm. We want to avoid the shock. We want to go to the pleasure. And so there's a fundamental awareness that joy is possible and belongs to us. And all the saints and all the masters and every scripture and every poet and every one who has seen beyond always talks about the nature of that the love and the bliss are really who we are, and we just get confused. We get fixated on the wrong things and we lose track with it. So yes, absolutely. Another way to put that, interestingly, my name Asha was not given by my mother, but was given by Swami Kriyananda. It's a Sanskrit name, it's a common woman's name, and it means hope. And it recently occurred to me that hope is simply another word for God, because it's that same thing. Inside ourselves, we know that we belong to joy, and we have the undying hope that we will achieve that because it's true. But we're looking in all the wrong places and in all the wrong ways, so it's a long story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will just say, for someone like me who's not as, on the journey as deep as Jenny is, but trying to understand things, greatly trying to understand, it can be confusing because, I always hear that we're given all these tough lessons in life so that we can learn, like maybe it's grief or whatever it may be, right? So we can learn and evolve. But yet joy is our natural state, but we're thrown all this difficulty at the same time.
Okay, no,
So we're supposed to search for the joy in the difficult situations.
That's not quite a helpful way to think of it, although I know that's how people say it. I
That's
wouldn't.
good because this is what a lot of our listeners are like me.
It doesn't work for me either. When I'm down, I'm down. Don't don't lecture me with what I say is true but irrelevant spiritual advice. It's not what I'm interested in. It's more complicated than that and requires a bigger picture. So I have to go to some bigger issues, which is we exist on multiple dimensions at the same time. So when one speaks of oneself, there's lots of different aspects to ourselves, and some are more advanced and freer, and some are more, we're retarded in certain areas, we're remedial in certain areas, and we're advanced in other areas, which gives us the picture that there are many things happening at the same time. We're not so simple. And we also have to accept that you have to have reincarnation in here. You have to have the idea that experience is carried from one lifetime to the next, that one lifetime doesn't just end and everything gets thrown away and we start from zero. Just as when you wake up in the morning, everything that's happened previously to that day is part of who you are and part of how you relate to the world. And so, in the same way, everything that's happened in many previous incarnations has formed us into a certain point. So, this day is the result of a great many lifetimes of experience. If you can't accept that, it's hard to accept anything else that I say. Because if you just go from birth to death, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
People try very hard to find sufficient explanation from the time they were born, but it doesn't really work. What is love at first sight? What is antipathy at first sight? What is irrational fear? What is irrational, desire? What is talent? It all makes so much more sense if you think about it. We lived before. And then you have to add to that, is there any progressive goal in consciousness and being a human being? What is the goal? What is actual success? So people think that actual success is measured in the obvious ways. That people like me, I have a nice family, I have a nice home, I have money. These are obvious things, and these are pleasurable things. It's not like these are ugly or small, they just are what they are. The difficulty is that we all die at a certain point, and the house doesn't go with us, and even the relatives don't go with us, and the fame doesn't go with us, and fortunately also the antipathy that we've achieved and the disappointments, but nothing physical goes with us. But what goes with us is the vibration of consciousness that we have become. Insofar as we've become a hateful, nasty, closed mind, angry person, then we take off our physical body. Just like, tonight I'm going to put on my nightgown when my day is over. And I love putting it on because it means my day is over, everything is finished. But I may look entirely different at that point. I may be wearing a different costume, but the body, the person inside is still me. I'm recognizably me, whether I'm wearing this or my bicycle helmet or anything. Even though I might look different, I'm still recognizably me. So when we wear our body for so long that we forget that there's an enduring reality other than my body. So when it comes time for that body to go away, if we haven't really thought it through deeply enough, we panic because we think once that body goes away, I'm obliterated. And this is all the death and return spirits stories are such a lark because everybody finds out, and all the movies now that they make, the actor falls over dead, and then the actor kind of comes out of the body and continues, just like they are, except in another dimension. So we have all these pictures and stories now that are telling us that I don't get a blank slate. I don't get to wipe it all out. Whoever I am, that's who I am. I'm in another dimension. And then eventually we put a different body back on. But since I'm still the same person, it's still the same story. Except now I get to act it out in the Sudan, or I get to act it out in a villa in Italy, or under a palm tree in Hawaii. So my dress looks different, but it's still me. I'm still just doing it. Now, somehow I lost the thread of what the question was you asked me. But what I was saying is that the goal, we have to figure out what the goal is. Oh, this is about happiness. And so if our goal is bigger than just this little incarnation, if our goal is not what happens to me, but who I become because of what happens to me. Then the relationship of what is good and what is bad gets a little more confused. The question of what is easy and pleasurable and what is challenging and annoying and difficult, that's still pretty obvious. But is challenging, annoying, and difficult actually bad if, in facing and going through it, I become much more dynamic and compassionate and kind and powerful and free? So, was that terrible thing that happened to me actually a punishment or a reward? You see, the whole story gets completely mixed up. And that quest for joy through the whole of it is the quest for joy is the project. Because if joy is our true nature, what happens to us is like something is big enough to persuade me that I can no longer live in that joy. So either I have to be crushed at that point, which many people are, or I have to say, really, but if that joy is really part of me, the joy must be bigger than this hard thing that's happening to me. So can I get bigger than the hard thing that's happening to me? And then when you do, as we all know, that's a tremendous victory. And the problem is that suffering is helpful. And again, that's super annoying because, you just don't want it to be. You want
Right.
it really rotten and you want it not to happen. But then when it does happen, if we pay attention and if we do our best, I certainly have gained and learned from the hardest things that's ever happened to me. And I'm absolutely certain I would never have expanded, gone to the next stage of becoming an apple tree if somebody hadn't set me on fire.
Yep.
I wish it were different. Even Yogananda complained about it.
You did.
So I'm sorry. Are you saying that you believe that we can start off as that apple seed in the same life and evolve in the same life from the seed?
No, because it's a bigger project than that. It's can I register for my PhD and then get it the next day?
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
But once I register, I'm on the road. And all I have to do is the work.
So being here is the first step. Yes.
Well, being here is not, it's a necessary stage. This is the training. This is the university. Once you're waking up to spirituality at all, you're in the PhD program. I mean, we have to spend many incarnations, not just one season, in the first grade and in preschool. I mean, if you look around, regardless of the age of people's bodies, you see many people who are just in preschool. I mean, they're perfectly sweet, but they're just in preschool. They haven't a clue as to really where the real source of happiness is. They're grabbing ease and pleasure.
Do you feel with your work? Do you feel when you meet people like that? Do you feel pulled to put your teachings on them, or do you let people come to you? Do you know
You
what I'm saying? Is it something that you try to bring awareness to everyone you meet?
well, you try to development is directional, which is depending on. I mean, if Mahatma Gandhi, at the height of trying to free India, said, I have a law degree and I'm so well known. If I just opened a private practice now, I could make lots and lots of money. Everybody would think he'd gone backwards. If some lazy alcoholic bum suddenly gets so sober, applies himself and goes to law school and makes a lot of money, he's going forward. Same action, but depending on where you're standing. So you want to help everybody take what is actually the forward step for them. The small apple tree doesn't have to go back to being a seed. It's already done with being a seed. But the seed has to perfect being a seed. And there's ways to track all that. I mean, in hours and hours of talking, which I have on all my YouTube channel, I explain what the signs of development are and so on. But you can love everyone and you can be kind to everyone and you can give encouragement to everyone and you can make their lives happier. But it would be absurd for me to talk about things that make no sense to them An apple seed needs the techniques of an apple seed. If I start talking about the techniques of a mature apple tree, the seed will literally not have the foggiest idea what I'm saying. It would be useless, in fact, unkind to tell them, because it just wouldn't help. We just have to talk about being a seed. So I try to make it a point to be a benefit wherever I am. But that means I have to look at their reality and not mine. And then I'll find, like, my normal response. Well, actually, part of the reason why I cursed in the bank this morning was like 3 or 4 days ago, trying to get this money sent over to England. I go to the bank, and the two women that I know well who work there, are standing outside on the sidewalk drinking coffee because the door to the bank building is locked and they can't get in. I mean, they came to work and they couldn't get in, and so they joke. They said they're like tech workers standing outside in the sunshine drinking expensive coffees, which is what they were doing. And they were being very nice to me because I'm a customer. I have a lot of money in their bank and so on. But at that point, I just laughed and I said, "This is not a problem. This is hardly an inconvenience. This is my normal way of thinking about it." And so I didn't talk to them about God or reincarnation or anything like that. But, the helpful thing was to be cheerful. We're all locked outside of the building. You can't do your job. I can't do my errand. But, there are people dying in the Ukraine. This is not a problem. Let's put a portion. So you could say that to the bank teller, because it was the appropriate thing to say. When I'm in the grocery store, I say, "Wow, that's a beautiful manicure you have. Show me those little things on your fingers," you know? And I don't really care about the manicure, but obviously she does. And so she's gone to a lot of trouble to have these beautiful hands. So I want her to feel happy. I want her to feel that she's contributing to the well-being of the world.
Well,
That would be and just the homeless person, if you actually just look at them, most people go by as if they're not there. But you help people who are like one or two steps behind you in the direction you're going. You're generally called to do that. Sometimes people go, so for me, it's like, I can really help people who are more or less where I am with what I have. I learned this from Swami Kriyananda because I went all over the world with him, and I saw him in all kinds of circumstances. Wherever he was, you could see inwardly. He would essentially say, "How can I serve?" And then he would just offer whatever came to him, and very freely, but always appropriately. And then they didn't, when he lived in Assisi for many years, and most of he had certain stores and places that he would go for the years that he was there. People came to know him, and I think he never talked to hardly any of them about who he really was. But he loved the people, and they loved him.
Yeah.
He was their friend, and they could feel it.
Do you think we could shift just a little bit? I'm thinking about how, you've touched on, brought up Ukraine and different things. This world, as we know, is going through it.
Yeah, going through
And
it.
just to give, our listeners some advice on how to work with their fears right now.
Okay, it took us longer to get to this question than it usually does. It usually
I
takes
know.
to get to this question, if that. And I'm with it because we're watching very scary things happen. And it's made worse. I mean, watching all these scary things in my world, Yogananda made very strong predictions about extremely difficult times. And he made predictions in 1950 that implied that there would be 2 more world wars before the end of the century. And even though there have been conflicts continuously, we haven't really come to that thing that we call a world war, which we've seen twice, which this planet has seen twice. I'm too young to have seen either of them, but they were pretty darn recent. I was born in 1947, which is about a minute after the second one ended. Not only Yogananda, but Mother Mary in Medjugorje, Padre Pio in Italy, the Mother Mary at Fatima, Satya Sai Baba. Everyone says, and honestly, anybody with common sense who's paying attention, you can just see that things are heating up. There's bigger explanations. We are In fact, moving into a higher state of consciousness, technology is one of the proofs of a higher state of consciousness. The enormous interest, which is all over the world, in more elevated ways of living, which include meditation and primarily into making our actual experience, rather than the dogmas of others, the measurement of what is right and what is wrong. Institutional religion is shrinking, but personally access inner spirituality is growing. But during a transition period like we're in, the world polarizes. I mean, if there's one word that characterizes, well, we certainly are using that word all the time in the US, but it's actually the whole world is polarizing between this self aggrandizing, bigoted, prejudiced, small minded, power hungry, greedy way of doing things where we're going to seize power and make it what we want it to be, and with an extraordinarily impressive disregard at times for the humanity of others, what to speak of their well-being. This is, both of you being American as I am, this is particularly poignant for us Americans, and I have many friends of other nationalities, and I try to explain to them, just sort of with this childlike naivete, we've always been such a nice country. We've always had all these honorable ways of doing things, and many of us have been gratified to be part of a country that has a legal system that actually works and all, and a balance, all that. So it's been heartbreaking. And that's just on the theoretical level. So we have to start from the fact that it's likely to get worse before it gets better. And I'm not trying to be pessimistic, I'm just being realistic. It looks like it's going to get worse before it gets better. So then you have to ask yourself, is anybody in charge? And if you have any belief in God, do you think that there's any divine force that is running this? According again to Yogananda, for whom I have limitless regard and absolute trust in what he says, yeah, the great masters of India, Jesus, Babaji, they know what they're doing. But every soul, this is the hardest part, every soul is equally dear to the divine, and every soul has an equal right to learn the lessons it needs to learn to become free. And we just want the people that we like, who are going to behave the way we want them to behave. We want them to have the opportunity to learn and grow. But all these, what I call Divine Mother's rowdy children, we do not want them to have the chance to do their thing. And they're behaving the way they're behaving because they think it's going to make them happy. And they don't know that it's not going to make them happy. They will learn, because the karma for disregarding the humanity of others is that you get to find out what that feels like, and a lot of other things happen. And so there's basically two groups of people who are incarnated on this planet right now, because this planet is at a stage of enlightenment, which is not very, in which it's very heterogeneous. There are planets where everybody's on the same wavelength, either horrible or more elevated, but this one is where shadow people and light people hang out on the same streets. And that's basically what we're dealing with right now. And the shadow people are getting a chance to block the light and see how that works for them. And it doesn't mean that it'll resolve itself in one incarnation. It's going to take, these people have a lot of power, and power is spiritual progress. Misusing it is not such a good idea. But that's what's happening. It's going to take time for that cycle to run. So basically, they're not my problem. I am not responsible for them. I don't have to fix them. God will take care of them. They'll learn their lessons. They'll be better in future than they are now. So why am I here? I'm here for two reasons. One is to be helpful, and the other is to get over the fact that I'm scared to death by a lot of what might happen. I'm not so much scared about myself, but I'm scared about having to witness a lot of suffering. Already it's very painful. I mean, that puts it mildly. Because if you have a compassionate heart and you read one tiny story about one person whose life is being wrecked for some reason, it's very, very hard. My own and all of our faith in God, faith in the fact that Divine Mother is in charge, that everything is going as it ought to. People are being given a chance to learn. Suffering is an opportunity, not a curse. I get to test all those things in the cold light of day.
Yes.
And so I think we have to deepen our connection with higher consciousness as fast as we can, because you can see the pressure is growing.
For sure.
Yeah, if we were in the Ukraine or Gaza or Israel, we would be already living under very different conditions.
Mhm.
Now, I want to be cheerful. I was very pessimistic,
No,
extremely.
no. Actually, everything you said it was quite interesting, and I do love the also how you said the Divine Mother's naughty children. And a lot of people, like people in my daily life that I talk to, that I'm friends with or whatever, they are very angry at those naughty children. So what would you say to them about that and that anger that they feel and the frustration that they hold?
Okay, now you have to, again, you have to have a bigger viewpoint, because everything I say is one thing is based on another. We think that the real force of things, that the material force is the strongest force, but it's not. It's thought and consciousness are the building blocks of the material world. I mean, even Einstein. I mean, you don't have to go to any of the saints and masters. It's modern physics says it's an universe, and energy is always pulsing against energy. And even if someone can, pick up a gun and go shoot someone or send 1,000 troops somewhere, that looks like a lot of power, but it's the thought and the vibration behind it that is the real power. So the real war going on, even though there may be shooting guns and dropping bombs, the real war is in consciousness. And if someone becomes angry, they are polluting the universe with exactly the same energy that is causing what they're angry about.
I hope everyone tracks that because that was excellent. That was really good. I love that. Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean that we naively say, oh, everything they're doing is just fine. No, a lot of what they're doing is profoundly evil. But evil is just a fact of reality. It exists. And I like the word shadow better than darkness, because shadow does not diminish light, it merely blocks the light. And in fact, shadow depends on the light. There is no shadow if there is no light.
Right.
So what we have to do is we keep empowering the light. And even if we're standing up against what we know to be wrong, if you want to stand up for things, by all means do so. There's no reason why you can't. But as soon as you become angry, you are not solving the problem. You are just ping ponging with the very thing that you're trying to eradicate. So even if you stand against it, when Jesus picked up the whip and drove the money changers out of the temple, he was not being nice. He was quite emphatic about it. But he was doing it because he was expressing righteousness. He wasn't really angry at darkness. He was just restoring righteousness. So whatever we do to right the balance has to be done with the consciousness we're trying to create. And a mother can love her children enormously, but sometimes I remember my sister with her son, who was very strong willed, and he has grown up to be an attorney. And he was an attorney as soon as from the age of 2. So he would always argue his case. And she had given him some instruction he didn't want to follow. He was about 5. And he was trying to persuade her otherwise. And she said to him, because she was a very good mother, she said, "When I speak to you like this, have I ever changed my mind?" And he thought, and he said, "No." And she said, "Well, I'm not going to change my mind this time either." So absolutely definite, but there wasn't a shred of anger or unkindness or withdrawal of her love and concern. And that's how we have to be. This is not acceptable. Your behavior is not to your well-being. And no, I'm not going to move off of this. But the calm kindness never goes away. We are witnessing for the good. We are not trying to smash the other. Because once we start smashing each other, we have become part of the problem. Now, is this easy? No, no. This is a program. We chose to come at this time in these circumstances because it's exactly what we need to grow. But of course, that's the challenge, to actually really believe that and then respond appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm probably less frightened than some because I have much context, but I'm by no means even-minded and cheerful at the prospect of what might happen. But I started to say I'm very optimistic because there is an enormous amount of light just springing up in all directions all over the planet. And I've been to many countries in the last few years, from South Africa to Japan to Lithuania to Finland, and all through Europe. And everywhere I go, enormous light, dedication. And I'm quite optimistic that once the naughty children and their firecrackers and all of the really strong things they do, once they're finished, we'll still be here. And it'll be our turn then after that. All the prophecies are about a clearing out to give more space for the light. So we have to build that, you see. If you think about it, one more thing on this, everything happens in 3 stages. Somebody has the idea, somebody puts energy into it, and then it manifests. We're all sitting inside a building. Somebody thought to build it. Somebody then put a ton of energy into building it, and now we have it. So if we want a new civilization, we have to put a lot of thought into it. We have to put lots of energy into it, which is what we're doing, and then it will manifest. It'll take us 5 minutes to get organized, basically, maybe only 3, because we just know what we're doing.
That's what I've been actually really talking with some of my friends
Mm-hmm.
a lot lately about focusing on what we want to build and what we want to create. That's positive, right? We don't need to focus on what's being destroyed. It is being destroyed, and it needs to, for the new age and our new ways of living, because these old systems, as we know, don't work for us.
Right. That's exactly right. And so we either build it literally and physically in the places that we are, but we also build it in our consciousness. We build it in our own awareness. Do I really believe in God? And also, all the prophecies say that the purpose of this is to awaken people to a higher way of being. So, also, even just from the point of self-protection, you see, if we're already engaged in the solution, if we're already have accepted the lesson and are working with a new way of being, then there's no need for us to be compelled into it by impossible circumstances. So that's also, it's a very strong incentive. My fun way of thinking of it is, you either grow because the light is so beautiful to you that you run toward it because you're so entranced, or you grow because you catch fire from behind, burning up from the back, and so you're trying to get away from the heat. And so let's not wait to catch fire from behind. Let's just move toward the light right now in every way that we can think of that is practical for the karma that we have. If you're raising a family, if you have a career that is important for you to follow, you can't leave everything and go live in a cave, but you can do what you're doing with the most elevated, expansive consciousness that you can bring to it.
One step at a time, right? It's
Step at a
as
time.
we always talk about, right? That it's our growth is directional, just like the story of Gandhi, which I use all the time, by the way, because I heard it from you years ago. It's such a great example of directional growth, right? And when we just focus on where we are, but first we have to know where we are, right? We have to know who and what we are and where we stand and what is our growth. What is that next step? And it could just be every day I'm going to affirm that I am a part of God, or, something simple can make a big difference in your life. So the practicality of it is crucial.
Even the habit that I make of myself. When I was a teenager, I used to work in retail. I worked in department stores as a teenager, and many people treated me like furniture just because they did. And every so often, somebody would come in who actually noticed that I was a person. And just anybody who came in and noticed I was a person and treated me like one changed my whole experience. I've always remembered that. So whenever I go anywhere, I try to remember that every single person that I see or meet is as real to themselves as I am to myself. And it's just so simple. You go grocery shopping. You relate to the other grocery shoppers. You relate to the clerks, and you become a stream of light where you're moving, or you become nothing. You might not be harmful, but you have great opportunities to give and you're not using them. And that's what we need. Just always be thinking about giving, but added to it, sometimes a loving mother is stern. It's not always to be nice. I mean, on the street where I live, there's no sidewalks and there's a lot of dogs and children. And I was driving and this teenager came around the corner. There was a stop sign. He just switched by the stop sign and went down the street. And then he parked just right near where I live. I stopped behind his car. I got out of his car. I asked him if he wanted to be the first teenager on our street to kill a child. And how would that affect his life? I mean, I just thought there was no point in letting this idiot boy do this because it was a real danger. What would you do if you killed a child right now? How would that affect the rest of your life? And I was very upset with him. And he was, God bless him. I mean, later I thought he could have pulled a knife on me or something, but he didn't. He was chagrined and he apologized. And I said, don't apologize. Just be careful.
Wow, Asha, that's such a blessing to him. I just want to say,
I
like,
was
that you
just going to say, Asha,
really.
yes, I have a 16-year-old son, Jenny's niece, who just got his learner's permit driving, and his friends one by one keep getting their driver's license. And I'm telling you, all of us mothers are like, and I would I would be so grateful if someone did that and if they saw my son do that to stop him and prevent him from a future tragedy. If someone saw him do that and stopped and took the time and cared enough about his future well-being and that of a child,
I know.
that is truly, I can relate to that very greatly. Yes,
And
that's awesome.
I live in a neighborhood where the assumption that this child would not be armed and angry was pretty, only much later did
Sure,
I
sure.
know. Sometimes teenagers can be really different than he was. That didn't cross my mind at the time. But
Yeah,
yes,
that's great.
my heart my heart goes out to you. It's just really like, and they're wonderful people, but the teenage brain is not, consequences are not yet fully embossed on the brain cells. But don't underestimate the power of a mother's prayer. Yeah.
Mm.
And you might go stick holy objects, hide them in their car.
Oh, I have. It's in there already. It's already in there. Yeah. It's from the Vatican. Yeah.
Very
It's
because
hanging on my mirror.
holy waters, rosary. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's probably why we've done so well growing up, because my mother prays like no one's business. Our mother prays all the time for us, so we feel deeply protected just from her prayers.
And I do make the joke that her prayers are so powerful that if I want something different than her, I better pray harder and more. So her prayer doesn't win.
I understand. St. Augustine, who became St. Augustine, was quite the libertine for a long time. And apparently his prayer became for a while, make me a saint, but not yet. But he said, and everyone agrees, his mother, who was St. Monica, who also became, whatever you call, sanctified by the church, she prayed constantly that he would reform. And he says, her prayers were stronger than his.
There you go.
I always think about that.
I was telling Jenny today earlier that I met a very lovely couple
Mm-hmm.
yesterday at my son's baseball game. It was the grandparents of one of the other baseball players, and they were so lovely. And he was telling me that his wife goes to church every single day. You don't hear that very often anymore. Every single day. And she said, I go. I'm glad she goes because she said I need the prayers. So she's doing, and he's doing well. He's 79. He's in great shape, physically well and happy. And he's like, it's working. I tell her, keep going.
Absolutely, that's the way you have to do it. I mean, your heart belongs to your children. You don't even want to think about anything but beauty and success for them. Yeah, absolutely.
If you could, I mean, I know we could really talk all day, but I would like for you, if you would mind sharing, what would be the simple, easy, powerful prayer maybe that people could start to bring into their daily life in terms of this global shift, to
Right.
say lately, that we're going through, to help people to kind of maybe calm their minds and their hearts.
Well, I mean, there's a few simple words. I mean, in every situation, say, how can I serve? Just wherever you are and whatever's happening, how can I serve? And if you begin to worry on kind of an abstract global level, you can pray, let there be light, peace and harmony. But the question is really, how can I serve? How can I love more? How can I be your instrument? The St. Francis prayer is, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's darkness, let me bring light. Where there's disharmony, let me bring harmony. Where there's hatred, let me bring love. I mean, that Francis had it pretty darn good. Another way of praying that I found very helpful, like when I see people doing something that's harmful or that frightens me. It came to me when my parents were in the last years of their lives. They both died within 2 years of each other 20 years ago. So this was some time ago. My mother declined physically, my father declined mentally. And I realized at first I kept trying to like intervene and just make their lives work better according to my concept of how their lives should work, which was not their concept of how their lives should work. So that didn't go over very big. But then I also realized that I was afraid of what might happen to them. But I also realized that they'd been working for countless incarnations to bring themselves to this opportunity to finish their life in the right way so that they could learn what they needed to learn. It was not really loving them for me to be afraid of what they're holding, of the karma of their incarnation. That would just make them afraid too. And it had to be faced because everything else had worked up to that point. There was no mistake. So the prayer that I came up with was, Divine Mother, whatever you're trying to teach them, give them the devotion, the receptivity, and the wisdom to learn it. Because they weren't really being told to suffer, they were being asked to grow. Whatever you're trying to teach them, Divine Mother, help them to learn it. And then sometimes I would pray and quickly because I'm running out of the capacity to be patient. And so that was honest. I wanted what I wanted because the best for them was not that my mother's illness go away or that my father's brain remain intact. The best thing for them was that whatever Divine Mother was trying to teach them, they were able to learn it. Because if they learned the lesson, they would be free of it. They would move on to the next stage. If I just moved in and protected them from learning, like an overprotective parent can actually weaken their child to the point of ruining their life because they don't, they're, you can see. So I was doing that to my parents, and I thought that's really wrong. I need to step back. I need to support them in learning like that. But I find that works when I see some horrible person doing some horrible thing or read about a horrible person doing a horrible thing. I think, Divine Mother, whatever you're trying to teach them, help them to learn it and help them to learn it fast, if that's at all possible. And then that also works for me when I become frightened or out of sorts. All right, Divine Mother, whatever you're trying to teach me, give me the receptivity, the devotion, and the wisdom to learn it instead of just banging against the cage. And it slows you down and puts you in a different relationship to it. And you can use it all the time, in every circumstance, for yourself around you.
That is my favorite prayer, Asha,
Oh,
from you.
it saved me countless times. Then when things happen, you say, well, what are you trying to teach me?
Yeah.
Instead of, fooey, like I said this morning.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that helps me so tremendously just by saying, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me? What is the opportunity here? I know it's an opportunity. And it softens everything. Even when it's really, big, it still brings it down to, okay, what's trying to happen here, right? I love that.
Um, it's not a rebellion against reality then. It's a practical adaptation to it. And you don't get angry anymore. And I mean, you can say, and I have said with great force, this is terrible, and I don't, But you see, even Jesus prayed that way. It's very important to notice. Jesus, when just before he was going to be crucified, he said, "Lord, let this cup pass from me." I mean, he actually said, "God, I can see what you're about to do, and how about an alternative to it?" It's just like he had an opinion, and he expressed it. He just, Father, let's not do this. But then he said, "But thy will, not mine, be done." And so that's how we pray. We don't pretend, oh, everything is fine. I know it's wonderful. No, it's not. I would really rather it be different, but thy will, not mine. And then whatever what you're trying to teach me, help me to learn it. And that way you don't have a complex, and you're not trying to be something that you're not, and you're at the sapling or the small tree stage, and this is what's appropriate for a small tree to say, but then it's rooted to the spot. It just has to go on. Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. Those are some of the deepest prayers, deepest wisdom that I have gained from you.
And I learned it from Swami.
Yeah.
I had an exchange with Swamiji once. This was in the middle. We had 12 years of litigation where another spiritual group decided that we needed to be blotted out. And the way these things work these days is through litigation. So we spent $1 million a year. I mean, we were a very small entity with very little money. I don't know where we found the money, but anyway, we did it, and it was awful, and it went on for a long time. And in the midst of that, somewhere, we went to the dentist, and he didn't have any cavities. And so when he came back from the dentist, and there were so many other things that were just assaulting us, he said, well, he didn't have cavities. So I said, thank the Lord for little favors like that, just kind of a silly thing that people say. So Ami got absolutely serious. He was very lighthearted and very natural. But if you actually sort of crossed a line in a way that was really you shouldn't do, he would become very stern. So I just said that dopey thing, which wasn't uncommon for me to just make a joke. It was the way I was. He said, I thank God for everything. Just like that. Just like there was no rebellion in him. And so all that we'd been going through, it had to be faced. It was unfortunate. There were some Divine Mother's naughty children who were doing some things they shouldn't have done. But he didn't wish it to be different, which is where we really get trapped.
Yeah, for sure.
He's, do we have to do this? But if we have to, okay, thy will be done.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to speak.
I was going to say I used that just recently when we've had some, I was calling it car karma because there was a major accident in one of our vehicles, no injuries, which was a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, our other car broke down, and it was just this kind of, say the thing that you're sharing is what I was, okay, accept God, what is trying to happen here?
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity for me to learn, and there's something good on the other side of this. I know it. Trusting that.
Bear in mind something good on the other side of it does not mean something easy and pleasurable. Some side of it means that I will learn something that I need to learn, and therefore I'll have, one more little bit of confusion will be moved out of my life. Sometimes when people would talk to me and who were in trouble, I would say, well, don't worry, something will happen. And they say, you mean something good will happen? No, not necessarily. Something worse may happen, but something always happens, moves on. But it's important not to try to make yourself comfortable by telling yourself something that is not necessarily true.
Right. Yeah.
It's not that you think of the worst. It's just what will happen is what needs to happen.
That's right. It's really trusting it, right? It's trusting that it's coming for you. It's for you in an opportunity, and to not rail against it, to not be in the revolt, but be in the quest.
Right.
What is trying to happen here? And staying open to that, when we're calm in the face of that as best we can be, then we can get that information more easily, that wisdom, right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. That's why just be yourself. Don't worry about feeling guilty. Don't worry about feeling adequate. Just cheerfully and fully embrace whatever is. And then from that, move on. But if we become afraid of what's going on, afraid of who I am, afraid of my failure, then your mind gets so clouded that that becomes the problem. And the over here is really trivial compared to the story that you're spinning around it.
Mm-hmm.
These are hard lessons. At least they were hard for me, but I've lived long enough to get through a lot of them. Thank you. If you don't die and don't quit, this is what happens. Even if you die, but if you just don't quit, dying doesn't change your body.
It's so true.
So, for those listening that are just in the self discovery mode or beginning the spiritual journey, where would you suggest that someone starts? Like something in the beginning.
Well, it would have to be an individual suggestion. Depending on where people are, Autobiography of a Yogi, which happens to be the master and the path I follow, is actually almost everyone who sort of moves into a slightly unconventional spiritual approach ends up reading that book. And many people find it is a catalyst for all kinds of positive change in their life. Even if they never follow Yogananda's teachings or any of the things that I've done afterwards, it's just one of the foundation blocks of a whole new way of thinking. However, if you're drawn to something else, just kind of follow your intuitive sense of things. But the most important thing is to do something. Do something that adds new ideas, new consciousness, new, more expanded experiences to your life. And the most important thing is to do something that expands you from where you are, because each step will lead to the next. But if you just sit and you never change your vibration, then nothing new will come to you. So it's much more important that you do something, anything that begins to shift you, than that you follow any particular course. And if you pray, even if you don't believe in God, just pretend there's a God. I don't believe in you, but I'm going to put this out to the universe anyway. Help me find my next step. And then listen and pay attention, and don't just throw yourself off a 12-story building, meaning don't suddenly leave everything and go to Tibet.
Yeah.
Just go to the YMCA, take a basic meditation class, and then come
Yeah.
back home. Just take a step at a time with a constant open, what should I do next? What does this mean? What's happening? And you'll be led, because once you start asking to awaken, you're moving into a realm where the winds of grace are blowing, and that they'll begin to take you.
I have to be completely honest. I have the book, and
Uh-huh.
my next step in my spiritual journey is to start over because I am having a difficult time really not feeling overwhelmed by the information. And I think that I put it down honestly, I put it down probably at least 6 months now.
Uh-huh.
And it just sits on my shelf and stares at me. And I put myself at should I go back to where I left off, or I just decided I think I should just start over.
Or maybe you should read Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, or something by Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you've already been through. If something, I didn't like Autobiography of a Yogi the first time I read it. I was pretty deep into spirituality, but I was very intellectual and rather rebellious against miracles. So I just didn't care for it. I met Swami Kriyananda. I went back and read it and loved it. But I never could read it until I met Swami. It was just too much. So
Okay.
yeah, I understand that things are too much. Nowadays, you can't go to bookstores. It used to be able to go to bookstores, but just browse around. There's so much out there now that's uplifted. If one thing doesn't work for you, there's so many other choices,
Mm.
because you're not going to be able to force yourself to comprehend something that doesn't speak to you,
Right.
even if your sister loves it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do. I read books from Michael Singer, and I just love listening to his podcasts and his books, reading his books. And I thought I was ready for it, but I guess I was I wasn't.
Right, it's not today, it's tomorrow. Michael Singer is a disciple of Yogananda, so he's offering you the same teaching. And he's done a marvelously creative job with it. I mean, he's great. Yeah, really, I love it.
I'd like to plug a couple books.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
That's not bad. That's one by a person I know. That's me.
I think this is great for people.
Actually, the Book of Miracles that I wrote also, Love to Perfect It. But you might enjoy that.
We will
This is a
put,
really good one.
for everyone listening, we'll put all of this information in our show notes. So
Okay.
scroll down after listening and you'll see, so you can get.
Well, see, both of those books are, well, the Ask Asha book is practical, but the Miracles book it's not philosophy, it's just stories. I mean, it's incredible stories of the way God participates in our lives. Different things speak to different hearts. Yeah. Well, look how different we all are. I mean, I walk down the street and I'm just amazed. I mean, everybody has a story, and they move constantly within their own story. And it's a complete story. It's not like they just appear on the scene for a few seconds and then go off. They're in the movie from the beginning to the end. And we're all so different from one another. So God gives us lots of choices.
It's so
Love
beautiful.
that. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your beauty, your light. Thank you for all the teachings that you offer all over. And that's the other thing. If anybody wants to follow Asha, it's the easiest thing. Just go on YouTube and she's everywhere.
What is your website, Asha? It is Asha Joy.
Asha Joy. Just Asha Joy will lead you everywhere. My Nayaswami is my name. If you just put it in, I have a wonderful friend who takes care of all of that for me, and she does a wonderful job. So I'm the easiest person in the world to find right now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I have a fun, silly question. It's just
Okay.
for fun. If Asha Joy were a feeling, color, or a sound, how would you describe it?
Well, Asha means hope and joy, so it would be hopeful joy. It's pretty obvious. Positive, that would be the feeling. A color. Well, my initiation color is blue. So I would have to say that I always am the lady in blue. So I suppose I would be blue. And the sound, it would be, I'm actually trying to think of what, there's a particular chant that Yogananda wrote, and it's called I Will Be Thine Always. Belt chant, that would be the sound that I'd like to be. Okay.
Oh, I love that.
Beautiful. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Asha, so much.
Okay, it was great fun to talk to you, ladies. I'm
It
glad
was.
to be one of your sisters. Add me to the list.
Yes. Thank you so much. I know that all of our listeners are definitely feeling the exact same way that Jenny and I are, full of gratitude for you and taking the time to spend with us. And you have, so much, I have so much respect for you. So thank you very, very much.
The good work, ladies. We're all part of the solution. Just
That's
keep.
right.
Okay.
All
God
right,
bless.
to all of our listeners, we will see you soon.
Okay. Bless you.
Bless you. All is well.
All is well. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye, Asha.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Sister Sessions podcast. If you found inspiration in today's conversation, we'd love it if you shared the episode with your besties, family, or even your favorite neighbors. We'll be back next week with more to share, but until then, remember, meditation is the key to unlocking your inner peace. All is well, friends. See you soon.